Hello again, this is Len Berry, and we're going to continue our discussion of Bernie Sanders, Our Revolution. In this video, we're going to go over three chapters, though one of them much lighter than the others, for reasons we'll get to. Chapter 3 is thinking about running. So this is the point at which things have reached a point with Bernie Sanders, and he's greatly considering a run for presidency. Now, part of his methodology is that as a presidential candidate, people will automatically pay a little bit more attention to him. The media will pay more attention to him. The populace will pay more attention to him. And he feels that that's a good way for him to actually express many of his ideas, to get his thoughts out there. And this is one of the main reasons why his candidacy is considered a vast success. One of the quotes I've heard in the past, and I apologize for not directly remembering it, goes along the lines of he may have not won the Democratic nomination, but he won the future, or something to that extent. His influence we don't yet truly know, because so many people who were motivated to vote for the first time because of him. And we're not talking about people who should be voting for the first time. We're talking about people who have been of voting age for years, never bothered to register, never bothered to make their voice known. Now they've been brought in to having an interest in what goes on in their lives, having a say in who their leaders are. This is important to note, because that's the true legacy of Bernie Sanders, especially at this point. His influence in making people stand up and say, we need to be heard. So, in the regard of sharing his ideals, that was a big thing, very important. He's quick to also point out in the third chapter, Thinking About Running, he's quick to point out that he's electing to go up against Hillary Clinton. And he points out early on that in October 2013 he was being asked if he was going to run, and at that point his answer was no. Especially since he would have to go up against the Hillary Clinton machine. Elected Bill Clinton twice. Nearly got Hillary Clinton elected in 2008. Here she was 8 years later. She was poised, without even saying she was going to run, she was poised to win. Bernie points out many of the things in which he admires about Hillary Clinton. When she knows something, she knows it. No notes required. She can talk about something in detail for hours and give factual evidence on it. When her passion is active, it's active. He points out also that Barack Obama got to experience quite a bit of that because he ran against her. People don't realize how long and strenuous that particular primary was in 2008. There was discussion, even leading into the convention, that Hillary Clinton might arrange to win. And a lot of that is because she had so many delegates leading onward. You think Bernie had a lot of delegates leading into the convention. Hillary Clinton had a lot of delegates leading into that convention 8 years previous. Bernie points out a few things where he and Hillary differ. They differ greatly. He points out how many interest groups within the progressive side of things really wanted a progressive leader, a progressive voice, because they knew that Hillary was more on the side of the corporate edge of the Democratic Party. He Bernie puts in an excerpt from a letter from a Ready for Warren campaign, a group trying to enlist Elizabeth Warren to run for president. And personal note, especially before Bernie outward said that he was running, I was firmly in the Elizabeth Warren camp. Firmly. I just like her. I like her. I like her directness. I like how she doesn't have to be over the top. Because there's such a notion that a strong woman, that a female leader has to be the strong woman, which means she has to have attitude and be assertive on everything. And Elizabeth Warren can actually kind of get around that. She can play this logic game if she wants to. In fact, rhetorically, that's a lot of what she does. She plays this logic game. She builds up this argument, and then she puts this one point into it, and the argument crumbles, either against her or for her. And she, however she's doing it, it's an intentional thing. So it's one of the reasons why she has so much momentum. Bernie also looked at the other candidates who were involved: Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee, and he was really, really, really starting to think that if Elizabeth Warren isn't going to run, and none of the people who are already up there are going to share are going to share the progressive ideals that he's been so adamant about, then maybe he needs to run. And he's been in many leadership roles before, so he decided to do what's known as testing the waters. This is where you're thinking about it. You might form an exploratory committee and you start traveling around, talking to people. And when he travels around talking to people, he's going into very conservative places that Republicans have been winning by 60% for decades. He's going there, and he's finding, many ethnic groups and labor groups and workers, nurses, just to name a few, and they are adamant that someone speak up for them. And he's shocked that no one's trying to reach them, that the Democratic Party has given up on them. And he's going to several places. He's going to the Carolinas. He's going to Georgia. He's Alabama, Wyoming, and that's just a few. He's going to these places that they don't vote Democrat. And there are lots of people there who, people who are supposed to represent me vote against what I want all the time. I need somebody to speak up for me. And yet the Democratic Party doesn't even bother going to talk. They don't even try. So Bernie spends some time saying how he met with a lot of these people. He met in many of these parts of the country. I mean, he went to Atlanta, Georgia, and he's got a crowd of people just waiting to hear him talk. I'm trying to remember where it is in his travels, but he gets stuck in a traffic jam. He's like, man, what's with this traffic? What's going on here? We're going to be late. And the reason why there's a traffic jam is because so many people are lining up to see him. So he's a little late, but he's late because there's so much interest in what he's doing. And he's learning how to embrace the notion of the selfie, because people are getting their phones out. They want to take a picture with him. he's a self-professed Luddite. He's not one who's been very good with technology, and yet he knows he's a sharp enough guy to know that he needs to get in on it. He needs to embrace it as much as he can. So he gets advisors to help him on that front, and he starts finding out that there are people everywhere who have a lot of his ideas. They say, we want to take care of our veterans. We don't want to go to war. We want to build a road, not a bailout for a Wall Street company. We want a better healthcare system, not a healthcare system where somebody in an office that we'll never meet gets to make the rules. And he's sharing his ideas with all these people throughout the country, and they're coming together. And finally he gets to the point where he says, okay, I think I'm going to do it. But along the way, there's the 2014 election. And that is an election that it was important to note that, yeah, Republicans won. But in a lot of ways they won because Democrats lost. And Democrats failed to recognize in the populace what the populace wanted. And it stimulated him to keep going. I mean, he's going to all these meetings where they're like, run, Bernie, run. Run, Bernie, run. It doesn't matter where he goes. They're chanting for him to do it. And he comes close to a decision, and there's the White House Christmas ball. Everybody takes their turn taking pictures with the president. When he takes it, when him and his wife, they take their turn with the Obamas, he asks President Obama, can I get a meeting? I want to discuss something with you. And they discuss issues that need to be heard, progressive issues. Kind of, is this something that needs to be brought to light? Is this something that needs to be made more important, shared with the public? And from that meeting, he comes to find that the president supports enough of his ideas, and now they should, agreeing that they need to be shared and expressed, that they can, that Bernie can and probably should make an effort to make those ideas stronger. So they do all these things to get the ground running. And Bernie does have a pause before he officially files the paperwork and officially becomes a candidate. And he knew that it was going to disrupt his life, especially his family life, a lot. He'd be spending a lot of time traveling. There wouldn't be enough time, very much on time with his family, with his kids, with his grandkids. And his wife wasn't keen on giving up all that time. But they shared the same ideals that these things need to be discussed. At the end of chapter 3, Bernie tells the story. And he writes, while we were closing on a decision on whether or not to make the run, Jane and I had breakfast at a Denny's restaurant in South Burlington, Vermont. We often went there on weekends. Their blueberry pancakes are especially good. While we were there that Sunday morning, a man came over to the table and movingly thanked me for the work that my office had done for him in gaining his veterans' benefits. Our efforts had changed his life. He urged me to run for president. Jane started crying. She now knew what we had to do. I've seen interviews where he's talked about that before. It's really the moment where where he was sure he wanted to, but his wife Jane at that point knew he had to, and they discuss it with the family quietly, and they formally started on May 26th, 2015. Uh, he informally mentions it to the media almost a month before that, and it's him behind a podium, and there's a lawn, and it was probably one of the the least impressive things you've ever seen as far as someone announcing their candidacy for president. The official campaign launch on May 26th uh, is a much bigger get together, which that's a lot of what Chapter 5 is about. Before we get there, let's talk about Chapter 4. He wanted to get his message down, and his message is pretty simple. It's the same message he always has. Let's help people. The easiest way to describe it. Let's help people. Let's not do silly things on that front. He talks glowingly about Pope Francis and how Pope Francis actually inspires him to think bigger about the world, bigger about how they can help people. Help in front of healthcare, helping the poor, doing more for veterans. And Bernie loves his rallies. He loves talking to people in person. He loves, being able to directly address a crowd. He loves it. He embraced it early on because he'd always loved rallies, and that's why his rallies were always big, because he always knew how to generate them, how to capitalize on them. For his staffing, for the way he was going to running it, his campaign, he was going to follow advice that he got from analyzing the campaigns of Jesse Jackson, Dennis Kucinich, and Barack Obama. Obama's campaign was very tech-oriented and youth-oriented, and Jesse Jackson was moving in a sense of building a coalition, and Dennis Kucinich's campaign was about expressing a liberal and progressive ideology even among a Democratic crowd. So he wanted to take those lessons from those three campaigns and build on them. He recruits his various staff, and a lot of them are the key people he'd been turning to for decades before that. He spends a couple pages talking about them all, so I'm not going to even attempt to list them here because there's just so many. He talks about social media, and I think this is the point where he says, "Yeah, I'm a Luddite." Personally, I'm a bit of a Luddite. I'm not all that impressed with every aspect of modern technology. Too much change for the sake of change. And let me make the radical statement that I don't believe that you can say something profound in the 140 characters that make up a tweet. He goes on to continue, but I'm not dumb. As a congressman and a senator, it didn't take me long to understand the advantages of modern communications technology. It also made sense to hire young people for my office who knew what they were doing. So they were going to use email, video, conference calling, social media. They were going to get every aspect of the technology that's available to really run with it for them. It's part of the reason why his online donation support has been so strong. I mean, through the internet, we received a record-breaking 8 million individual campaign contributions from 2.5 million contributors. I think it's fair to say that we wrote the book for progressive politics in terms of showing the potential of social media. After that, he puts, it becomes a thank you list essentially of the various people who decided upon themselves to act as his surrogates. People from Tulsi Gabbard to the heads of the House Progressive Caucus. He starts thinking celebrities that got involved. Guys like Cornel West, and Susan Sarandon, Sarah Silverman, Rosario Dawson. Lot. There's more than that. Again, a lot of names, paragraph each, and they each brought something different to their interests, because they didn't start talking about something different just because they wanted to support him. They talked about their interests and said, "This is the guy for us." He talks about the various groups that endorse MoveOn.org and what's the other one? It's the Democracy for America. My mind blanked. And how they opened up to membership and said, "Hey, who should we endorse?" And the membership said, "You should endorse Bernie Sanders, not Hillary Clinton." He talks about, between these two chapters, he talks about nurses a lot, because the nurses were one of the first groups to really fight for him. National Nurses United. They really fought for him because he was willing to fight for them. They got the AFL-CIO to hold off an endorsement until after the primary was over, because their endorsement could have elevated him or sank him, at least as far as endorsements go. So they held it off completely. They took themselves out of the equation until it came time to do the the nominees. Just picked among them. Discusses further the fundraising they were doing, and he knew he didn't want to do. He's after the super PACs. He doesn't want to go the super PAC road. That's not him. Obama, in his second campaign for president, said, "I don't like super PACs, but I'm going to have to use one." And Bernie said, "No, I don't like super PACs, and I will not use one." So instead, he was funded directly by the people, directly by those he was wanting to serve. Through our online efforts, our campaign ended up raising the astronomical sum of $232 million. That money came through some 8 million individual contributions from, again, the 2.5 million people. The average donation was $27. Not 5,000, 100,000, million. No, $27. For a little perspective, in some parts of the country, that's how much it takes for two people to go see a movie on a Friday night. $27. Chapter 5 is the campaign begins, and he discusses the big rally they had on May 26th, 2015 in Burlington, Vermont. And he talks a little bit about the scenery that was going on that day and who all had been there with him, who all spoke for him to lead up to his arrival there. And then the bulk of the chapter, some 10, 12 pages, is his speech from that day dropped directly into the text. And that is where we will leave off, because I know how big the next chapter is. And the next chapter is all we're going to talk about next time, because that's the last chapter for the campaign, and it is all of the campaign. So, before I go, I just want to give a brief shout out to a couple of friends who contacted me personally because of these videos, in discussing their nature or having watched them. I heard one from one friend who was going to say, "Hey, I'm going to grab the book. We're going to follow along." So I hope that I hope you're able to follow along, Chris. And like I told you then, feel free to leave any comments you like. That goes for everybody. And I was telling another friend of mine, Charles, yesterday, that I was doing these videos, and we got into an interesting discussion about politics and what we should do based on faith, because he's a man of faith, and it was insightful, and there's even though I briefly touched on it in my little summation, there's a lot in here where Bernie Sanders talks about Pope Francis, about the summit that he was invited to during the campaign. So, well, we might have a chance to talk about that later. I don't know. I haven't read past the point when I left my summary off on. But we will discuss more in time to come. So, as I mentioned before, feel free to drop a comment, like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Let's talk more about these things. I turn on Facebook every day and I see everybody's politicized and everybody's wanting to talk about something. So instead of arguing, why don't we discuss? With that in mind, this is Len Berry, and we have been discussing what is between the words.